Paloma, should we? Perfect. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Illinois Environmental Council for our Lunch and Learn series. We hope these sessions will help keep our community connected and informed. We were founded in 1975 by a group of dedicated grassroots environmentalists, and since then, IUC has led issue advocacy campaigns by allowing environmental organizations to pool their resources and create a higher profile for environmental issues. Today, IUC represents more than 100 environmental and community organizations operating in the state of Illinois. If you are not already a member of IUC and are able to give, please consider joining today by using the link in the chat box. My name is Samira Hanassian, Energy Policy Director with IUC, and I'm excited to welcome all on the line to today's Lunch and Learn, Solar Power Hour, Grow Solar Chicagoland. I'd like to note a few housekeeping items before we begin. All attendees are muted by default. If you joined via Zoom, please use the chat function to ask questions, add comments, or provide resources. Time permitting, we will take live questions at the end of the session. And for those joining by phone, please use *9 to raise your hand. And moderating the chat for us today, we have Paloma Campillo, Digital Engagement Manager with IUC. So with that said, for today's session, we are very pleased to have Marina Minic with Citizens Utility Board, and hopefully Adam Perri from Windfree Solar also joined us. So to begin, Marina, can you please tell us a little about yourself and background before starting your presentation?
Thank you for having me today on this IUC Lunch and Learn. My name is Marina Minic, and I am the Solar Programs Administrator at Citizens Utility Board. So that position, I'm part of the outreach team. So I spend a lot of my time doing events similar to ones like this one today, just making sure that people in Illinois are as educated as they can be on the basics of solar and the incentives currently available to them, as well as the different avenues they can take to access solar. I also work a bit with the policy implementation and helping people on an individual basis go solar. So those are my main roles. And yeah, I think with that, I can share my screen and we can get into the presentation. All right, perfect. So as Samira had mentioned, this program is called Grow Solar Chicagoland. So to give some background, Grow Solar Chicagoland is an educational program and a group buy program, all having to do with solar. So the two main goals of this program are, number one, to host these free informational sessions all across the region in Kane, Cook, Will, and DuPage counties to make sure that people are educated on solar. And the second main goal is to connect people with a vetted installer if they are interested in going solar. So through this group buy program, people are able to more easily access an installer and someone that CUP has already vetted out, and it helps people to go solar without having to do as much research. Hopefully this helps make the process a lot smoother. And then it also is a group buy program. So when people go solar through the program, we're using both purchasing power to offer a discount for those participants. So it can be an easier and more affordable way to go solar. To give some background on the main partners of this program. So as I said, I'm from Citizens Utility Board, otherwise known as CUB. And we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works to represent utility ratepayers across the state of Illinois. And we also advocate for cleaner and more affordable energy. So our main mission and goal is really to make sure that people's utility bills are as low as they can possibly be, and that they're saving as much money as they possibly can. And then we're also huge advocates for clean energy, which is why we participate in this program. CUB, I'm on the outreach team for CUB, so our outreach team goes to around 500 different outreach events a year, similar to ones like these. Another type of outreach event that I'm very fond of is
I can't get on my.
our,
Okay.
so my favorite service that we provide are our utility bill clinics, or UBCs. So with these, people can come in with their physical bills and sit down with a CUB staff member, and we'll go through your bill with you and give you suggestions on ways to increase your energy efficiency and decrease the cost of that bill. So if you're interested in something like that, you can always email ubc@citizensutilityboard.org to get a virtual consultation set up so that someone can help you go through your bills. Our other partner in this program is the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, or MREA. So the MREA is an educational organization that promotes renewable energy through courses in solar PV, solar thermal, and small wind. And the MREA was founded back in 1990, and they've been running these group buy programs all across the Midwest since 2013. Their main philosophy is that the more solar is better, and that education is always the first step. So that's why this part of the program, this educational outreach, is so important. And the MREA has run around 50 of these group buy programs across the Midwest. And the way that they run these programs is they will partner up with a local organization in each of these different territories, and that local organization will take care of the education and outreach portion of the program. So with the Grow Solar Chicagoland program, the MREA has chosen CUB as their local partner to do all this outreach and education. So that's kind of how we work together and what our different roles are. And then finally, I would also love to thank the Illinois Environmental Council for co-hosting today's event. We have been running these programs all summer long with different environmental organizations and municipalities, and I think we've reached a really large number of people. So thank you to everyone who is here today. And now, before we dive in, I just want to go over what we'll be talking about during today's presentation. So I'll start off with the benefits and basics of going solar. Then I'll go through the different incentives that are currently available to you. There are a lot right now. And then I'll go through the different options when going solar. So leasing versus owning, community solar, and solar for all. And then finally, I'll go through the specifics of the Grow Solar Group Buy program. All right, so to start off with the benefits of going solar. So solar is very popular right now, and it's gotten a lot more popular since solar cells first came online for commercial use in the 1950s. The technology isn't necessarily new, but scientists have been improving and advancing it since then, which has contributed in solar becoming cost competitive with other sources of electricity. Currently in the United States, there are over 120 gigawatts of total installed capacity, which is enough to power over 23 million American homes, which is a lot of homes. And solar also accounted for 46% of all new electric generating capacity additions in 2021, which was more than any other source. So that means there was more solar capacity added than coal capacity or any other source of energy, which is a really wonderful trend to see. And finally, Zillow even found that homes with solar panels sell for around 4% more than similar non-solar homes. So solar helps to increase your property value, and in the end, it does pay for itself. Solar is also great for our health and the environment. So to start with the environment, over the course of 25 years, the average size solar system is going to offset over 260,000 pounds of CO2, which is equal to any one of these statements on the screen. So if you are looking to decrease your carbon footprint or help to fight climate change, then going solar can be a really great way of doing that. Sourcing your power from renewable energy makes a huge difference for our environment. And it's also great for our health. So widespread solar adoption could significantly reduce nitrous oxides, sulfur dioxide, and particulate matter emissions, which are all harmful air pollutants. So in the end, solar really is great for our health and for the environment. It's a win-win, but hopefully I am preaching to the choir about that today. All right, now we can get into solar basics. So one of the main questions I usually get about solar is, is there enough sunlight in Illinois for solar to even be worth it? And the short answer is yes, but I like to try to prove it to you all with this solar irradiance map. So here we have the map of the United States, and in the red, like areas like New Mexico, Arizona, those are the places in the United States that get the most sun, so they're the most red. Then we have kind of up in the corner, the Pacific Northwest and also Alaska. Those are that deep blue and purple color, and that's where we get the least amount of sun. And then you can see Illinois is right there in that kind of middle green color. So we get kind of the average amount of sun. Then I also like to show Germany up on this map, which is that very dark blue and purple color. And Germany actually has the highest amount of solar capacity installed per capita in the world, with a goal to generate 80% of their power with solar by 2030. So, Germany gets about as much sun as Seattle, yet they're adopting solar in a very meaningful way. So if they can do it, then Illinois can most definitely do it with our extra amount of sun. All right, and to kind of go through the flow of how solar actually works. So PV cells, or your solar panels, are semiconductors. They're made of silicon. So when a photon or a sun ray hits that cell or solar panel, it will knock electrons loose. And by doing so, these electrons will start to flow. And that flow of electrons creates DC current. DC current is, that's what solar panels create, but it is not usable by our homes or by our utilities grid. So that DC current needs to flow through an inverter, and then it will be converted into AC current or alternating current power. So once that happens, it will then flow through an electric meter where it will be tracked, and then any excess electricity produced will be sent back to the utilities grid for net metering. And I'll get into net metering in a few slides here. That's kind of the flow of how solar actually works. So now I like to talk about the inverter. So that is what converts our DC electricity into our AC electricity. And an inverter is kind of like the brain of a solar system. So here's an example of the monitoring capability that your solar array may have included. It depends on what type of inverter you have, but typically you are able to see the production or output of each individual solar panel that you have. So for example, on the screen, in that bottom right corner there, we have one panel that is very dark, it's underproducing. So with this module level monitoring, we're able to quickly find that problem and get it fixed so that our panels are working as best as they possibly can. So now we can talk about the different type of inverters. So first we have the string inverter, and this is kind of the original inverter. So these work well if there's absolutely no shade. And if there is shade, then it can significantly reduce the output of the entire system. So to repeat that, even if one panel, or even if only one panel is shaded, it will affect the efficiency of the entire system. So these are typically used in commercial projects where these panels are out in the middle of nowhere and there's absolutely no shade getting to them. But for residential projects, that's typically not the case. So instead, folks either use microinverters or power optimizers. So microinverters are when there is an individual inverter on each panel. So this can be more expensive, but it is beneficial because it allows Like if one panel is getting less sun, therefore being less efficient, it will not affect the rest of the system. And this also allows for module level monitoring. Power optimizers are kind of the happy medium. So they do have a string inverter, so just one inverter, but they have optimizers on each panel. So they still allow for that module level monitoring, and they're kind of in the middle cost-wise. So this is typically what we recommend. All right, so if you are interested in getting solar, it is important that your roof is also an ideal candidate for solar. So here are a few things to consider. First of all, we have the solar window, which is 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The solar window is basically the most important time to have complete sun exposure. So, if you get shading on your roof closer to 5 or 6 p.m., that's not as big of a deal because the sun isn't as strong at those hours. It's really 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. where you want the most sun. And then for roof direction, south facing is definitely the most ideal. And east and west facing roofs are still good, but they will require around 10 to 20% more panels to be to have as much production as a south facing roof system would. And then north facing isn't really the most ideal for panels unless you have a really low pitch roof, like 5 to 10 degrees. There is a tool online called Project Sunroof on Google where you can look up your address and see how much sun your roof gets. It's kind of like a solar irradiance map. This is a pretty helpful tool, but keep in mind it doesn't show other structures that you may be able to put panels on, like a garage or shed in your yard. And a lot of times this Project Sunroof will also give kind of a price estimate or savings estimates, and those aren't typically very accurate. So we do recommend talking to an installer for an actual kind of price estimate. All right, now we can get to specifics for roof mounted systems. So roof mounted is the most common type of installation. You can also get them in your yard, like a ground mounted system, but these are a bit more expensive because you need to trench to put those panels in the ground and then also to bring the wiring back to your home. So roof mounted systems are typically attached via aluminum railing system, and a lot of people get worried about potential leaks, mold damage in your roof. That's very uncommon. These panels or the mounting system is sealed, so that shouldn't happen. But if it does, it is usually on the usually the installer's kind of problem or responsibility. And then just some other considerations. We do live in the Midwest, so we can get some crazy weather. For snow, snow will not cause long-term damage to your panels, but of course, if your panels are completely covered in snow, they are not going to produce electricity. However, as soon as at least a little corner of your panels is exposed and able to produce some, it should heat those panels up a bit, which will melt the snow off. One thing to note is a lot of times when you do get a lot of snow and it melts off, all of that snow will come down in one large heap or chunk. So keep that in mind, if you're planning on putting panels over a walkway or something, you may want to think about that because you might be getting a lot of snow on that walkway as well. In terms of hail, panels are rated for at least 1-inch size hail at 50 miles per hour. This is because silicon is very fragile, so that glass covering over top is very strong to protect that. And then wind loading, there's only about a 3-inch air gap between your solar panels and the roof, so that is not enough space to create a wind sail. So some people are concerned about that too. Another thing to consider is your roof condition. If you are around 5 to 8 years out from needing a new roof, you may want to consider getting a new roof before going solar, or at least having a roofer come to look at your roof and inspect the condition of it. It is an annoying cost to, get panels on and then 5 years later need to take them down to replace the roof and then put them back up. So we typically recommend that you try to avoid that. And then finally, if you do have a squirrel or critter problem in your yard, you can get something called a critter guard. This is a black plastic lining that goes around the panels, and it helps to keep squirrels or rodents out from under those panels because they can get at that electrical underneath. So that is one consideration. If you do have a squirrel problem, make sure to mention that to an installer. All right, and then finally, unfortunately, if you do have a grid-tied system, which is what most people have, if there is a power outage, your utility has a power outage, your system and your home's power will also go down. And this is done to prevent injury to utility line workers that may be performing repairs on the grid. So that is something to keep in mind. Battery storage or backup battery storage is also possible. You can be both connected to the grid and have a backup battery, but this is very expensive. So, you know, unless you really need to have a backup source of power, we don't typically recommend it unless you have kind of that extra money to spend. All right, and then so the average sized solar system in the state of Illinois is 6.5 kilowatts, and that size typically produces around 9,000 kilowatt hours in the first year. And before we go on, I do want to distinguish what a kilowatt is versus a kilowatt hour. So kilowatts measure power capacity. And for example, a 6.5 kilowatt system can produce 6.5 kilowatts in one instant. So that's kind of why we use kilowatt to describe the size of a system. This is different, however, from a kilowatt hour. So a kilowatt hour is power used over time. And you're probably familiar with kilowatt hours. This is what you see on your electric bill when they tell you how much electricity you use that month. You know, for example, it'll say that you used 300 kilowatt hours in the month of August. So those are good to keep in mind that there are different. They have different definitions: kilowatt versus kilowatt hour. All right, and now we can get into net metering. So a few slides ago, when I was describing how solar panels work, I said that when you do have panels on your home, you know, when electricity is produced, it will go to power your home, and any excess electricity will be sent back to your utility's grid. It will first go through that meter to track the amount and then go back to the grid. So when that happens, your utility will then credit you for any of that electricity that you did send to the grid. And that is what we call net metering. So for ComEd customers, you are credited at the same rate that you purchase electricity. This is called one-to-one net metering. So for example, ComEd right now is charging around 11 cents per kilowatt hour. If you get solar, they will then also credit you 11 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, say 1 month is really sunny and you actually have so much excess electricity that it is worth more than what you owe on your bill. Those excess credits will then roll over to the next month, and they'll continue to roll over month to month until they expire annually at the end of April. So kind of how that is set up is in the summertime, you know, it's sunnier, you're producing a lot more electricity, and you're storing up those credits month to month. And then in the winter, when you get less sun, you start to kind of use those credits up. They get applied to your bill each month. So hopefully by the time April comes around, you don't have too many credits expiring. And then here is a sample ComEd bill to show what net metering would look like. So on your bill right now, you'll already have that meter information section that shows how much electricity you used from the grid. And then when you go solar, there'll be an additional line to show how many kilowatt hours you sent back to the grid. So for example, this person this month had 180 kilowatt hours of excess generation. So that means they used 180 kilowatt hours more, or they produced 180 kilowatt hours more than they used. Those credits will then be applied to the bill. They first get applied to the supply portion of your bill. And then if you still have credits after that, they will then be applied to delivery and then taxes and fees. One thing to note is under a standard rate plan, you will never reach $0 on your bill. The lowest you'll reach is probably around $15. And that is because the customer charge and standard metering charge, which are the two lines right under delivery, those two cannot be netted out with credits. So around $15 a month under the standard rate. So I also like to bring up energy efficiency. Before considering solar, it is very important that you also consider the energy efficiency in your home. You know, there's no point in sizing a very large system to power a very inefficient home. You can save a lot of money by first getting your home as efficient as possible so that you can then get a smaller system to power your home. So some of the ways to make your home energy efficient that we suggest are first LED lighting, also looking into appliance upgrades, seeing if you can get any Energy Star appliances, also making sure that your home is properly weatherized and insulated. That goes a long way. And also keeping an eye on your electricity usage habits. So even simple things like making sure you turn off the lights and making sure that you unplug things that you're not currently using, those all go a long way. One website I always like to mention for people who are ComEd customers is comed.com/ways to save. On this website, you can find different discounts and rebates for Energy Star appliances and services like if you need your HVAC system tuned up or things along that line. There is also a program called the Home Energy Assessment that you can sign up either via phone or through the website. And with the Home Energy Assessment, you can do this in person or virtually, but someone from ComEd will do a walkthrough of your home and give you suggestions on ways that you can become more energy efficient. With this program, they will also replace all of your light bulbs in your home with LED light bulbs for free. And they'll give you some other energy efficiency tools like low flow faucets and things like that. You'll also have the chance to buy some things at a discount like a smart meter or smart energy strips. So definitely check out that website and really make sure to consider energy efficiency when thinking about going solar. All right, and to wrap up this whole section, I just want to talk about things that you need to consider before speaking with an installer. So, you know, whether or not you're going solar through this program or through a different installer or 5 years down the road, here are some of the things to keep in mind. So first, think about your roof. Does it have good solar exposure? Also, which direction is it facing? As I said, south is the most ideal. Also, when do you anticipate re-roofing? And finally, is your home energy efficient? One other thing I like to mention is if you are planning on making any adjustments to your lifestyle that will make your energy usage go up or down, that is something good to mention to your installer. So for example, if you're getting an electric vehicle in the next couple of years, that would increase your energy usage. Or if you're planning on replacing your appliances in the next few years, which would decrease it, just make sure to let your installer know because they can anticipate those changes when sizing your system. So that kind of makes it easier so you don't have to get a couple more panels down the road or so that you're not overproducing too much down the road either. So just keep those in mind when speaking to an installer. All right, now we can get into incentives for going solar. So this is a pretty fun section because the incentives in Illinois are pretty good right now. So I'll go through these one by one, but first we have the state solar renewable energy credits. These can cover around 40% of your project cost. And then we have the federal tax credit, which is currently set at 30%. And then on top of those two, we have utility net metering credits, which also help to pay your system back faster. And another thing I like to note in this section is that your homeowners association cannot block you from going solar in Illinois. So now we can get into those one by one. So first we have the solar renewable energy credits or SRECs. So to give some background on how this works, these are given through the state solar incentive program called Illinois Shines. And Illinois Shines was created back in 2016 with the Future Energy Jobs Act, and it was re-upped and expanded in 2021 with the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. And as I said, this is the state solar incentive program. And Illinois Shines also set a goal for Illinois to hit 50% renewable energy by 2040. So if you go solar on your property, Illinois wants to be able to count your solar production toward their overall goal. However, they can't legally claim that generation toward their goal unless they pay you for it, which is kind of where this incentive is born. So essentially how this works is when an installer puts panels on your home, they will estimate the amount of electricity that those panels will produce over the next 15 years. That will then be multiplied by a dollar amount, which is the price of the state renewable energy credit. And you will receive this state check from your installer about 10 months after your system is connected to the grid. So right now, this incentive does cover around 40 to 45% of your project costs, which is very exciting. Just to give a bit of background again, there were actually new renewable energy credits published by the Illinois Power Agency on August 1st. So before, like a couple weeks ago or a month ago now, this incentive covered closer to 30 to 35% of your project cost. But with those newly published renewable energy credit prices, we're seeing something closer to 40 to 45%. So that was pretty exciting to see. One thing to note is, unfortunately, this incentive is considered taxable income, both state and federal. All right, next we have the federal tax credit. So this currently covers 30% of project costs. When I say project costs, that includes labor costs, system installation, interconnection wiring, and energy storage systems or batteries. It does not include a new roof, but it will include any structural reinforcement that you need to support solar panels, but that is a very rare situation. Usually you don't need additional structural reinforcement. And the home must be owned by the taxpayer, but it does not need to serve as the principal residence. And this is a non-refundable credit that reduces what you owe on your income taxes. So if the value of the credit is greater than what you owe in income taxes that year, it will roll over to the next year, and it will continue to roll over for as long as this credit is offered. And unfortunately, if you don't owe income taxes, then this incentive does not help you out very much. I did want to add that the Inflation Reduction Act is what set this credit to 30%, and it set it to 30% for the next 10 years guaranteed. And it also added in batteries to that overall project cost. So before this, batteries would not have counted in there. Yeah, I think that is all for the federal tax credit. Or just kidding. One last thing I like to mention is this credit will start, or it will count on any project that was connected starting January 1st, 2022. So even if you're on this webinar and you got solar a couple of months ago, this 30% will apply to you. So that's a good thing to note as well. You don't need to wait till next year or anything to take advantage of this 30%. All right, and now we can get into the different options you can go through for accessing solar. So I want to start off with talking about leasing versus owning. So of course, when you own panels, physical panels on your roof, you need to take care of those upfront costs and finance it in whatever way is best for you. But when you do own them, you get those state and federal incentives. You also, of course, get the electricity going into your home, and you get to use utility net metering. So those are all the benefits when you do purchase panels outright. It really is just figuring out how to cover those upfront costs. The other two options you can do are leasing or doing a power purchase agreement or PPA. So with a lease, sorry, it is very windy out my window right now. I was making sure my window was okay. So the other two options, are a lease or a PPA. So a lease is when an installer will put panels on your home and the installer will remain the owner of those panels. So not every installer offers this, but some of them do. So when the installer remains the owner of the panels, they will receive those state and federal incentives. And what you get is the electricity in your home and the utility net metering. So you don't have to pay any upfront cost, but you do need to pay a fixed monthly fee back to the installer. You know, this is your lease back to the installer. With the power purchase agreement, instead of a fixed monthly fee, it is a price per kilowatt hour back to the installer each month. So leases and PPAs can seem ideal because they allow you to kind of avoid those upfront costs, but companies are legally allowed to include a cost escalator in their contracts of up to 2.9% per year. So a lot of times that means that your prices will increase around 3% every single year. And a lot of people, by the end of a 20-year lease, they're paying 50% more at the end than they were at the beginning. Another thing, a lot of times contracts can include some unfavorable things for when you move. So you may need to transfer that lease or that contract to the next person, which can make things difficult for you. So at CUB and the MREA, we both really recommend that you fully explore your ownership options before going into a lease or PPA. This owning your panels is usually what allows for the greatest amount of savings, even though you have to take care of those upfront costs. All right, next we have community solar. So maybe you are really excited about solar and you go to Google Project Sunroof or you talk to an installer and you find out that your home is not ideal for panels. Maybe you have too much shade, your roof is facing the wrong way, or maybe even on this call you're a renter or you just don't want to go solar right now. But there's still a program for you called Community Solar. So Community Solar is a pretty new program in Illinois. It was also created back in 2016 with the Future Energy Jobs Act and then expanded in 2021 with the Climate Equitable Jobs Act. And community solar essentially allows you to subscribe to a portion of a solar farm that is located somewhere in your utility territory. So with this program, there are no physical panels on your roof. You're simply subscribing to a solar farm somewhere far away. So currently in Illinois, there are 8 community solar companies that CUB is aware of. So you can choose whichever company is best for you. And once you subscribe to this company and your project goes live, that means that each month your subscription will produce electricity. And when it does, your community solar company will report the amount of electricity your subscription produces back to your utility, and you will receive a credit on your bill for that electricity produced. And then you also need to pay a subscription fee back to the community solar company. But right now, since there are a lot of companies and they're trying to be competitive, they're all offering a discount. So you will always pay back less than what you saved. And then with this program, you will now pay 2 bills. You'll have the existing electric bill, and then you will also have a monthly bill to your community solar company. Something to note, a lot of them also do consolidated billing or auto pay if you like that better. And you can go to solarinthecommunity.com to learn more. This is a website CUB created. We list all of the different offers, and we also have a comparison chart so that you can see those offers side by side and pick which one is best for you. One thing to note is most of the companies have extremely long wait lists right now, somewhere between 6 months to maybe even a year. So if you are interested in community solar, I really recommend you pick a company, try to subscribe and get on that wait list so that they can connect you to a project as soon as possible. And just before we move on from community solar, I do like to show this graphic here just to explain how the billing works a bit further. So in the purple, we have someone without community solar. So we see their electric bill, and that month they used 800 kilowatt hours, which results in a $109 bill. And then here's that same person that month if they did have community solar in yellow. So we still have that electric bill and they still used 800 kilowatt hours that month, but their solar subscription produced 714 kilowatt hours, which resulted in a $50 credit on their bill. So in the end, they owe $59 to their utility, but they still also owe that subscription fee back to their community solar company. But as you can see here, this company offers a 20% discount. So even though they saved $50, they only have to pay back $40. So in the end, they save $10 that month. Community solar definitely offers smaller savings than rooftop solar would, but it is a nice way to offset your carbon usage and source your electricity from renewable sources and get some savings on your bill each month. All right, and then finally, I have Solar for All. So this is the income qualified solar incentive program that's run by the state. Through Solar for All, you can access community solar and rooftop solar, and there's also a subcategory for nonprofits and public facilities. To qualify for this program, you must be at or below 80% area median income, and this will vary based on household size and region. So if you want to double check if you're eligible, you can go to the program website, which is illinoissfa.com. You can find out there. But if you are eligible, this is definitely the cheapest way you're going to go solar. It's written into law that any ongoing costs or fees that come with being a part of the program cannot exceed 50% of the value of the energy being produced. So that's pretty great. And there's also greater consumer protections involved in this as well. So yeah, I definitely recommend you go to illinoissfa.com to learn more if you think you may be qualified, because it is the cheapest way to go solar. But if you do not qualify and you still want kind of an easier way with greater consumer protections and a discount, then Grow Solar Chicagoland is a pretty good option for you. So now we can finally get into those details. So as I said before, the MREA has run around 50 of these group buy programs throughout the Midwest. They have done these programs in Urbana-Champaign, Metro East area, and this is the third time we're running it here in Chicagoland. We did it back in 2019 and 2020, took a break in 2021, and now we are back. And essentially how the MREA structures these group buys is first they will start scheduling these free solar power hours all across the region to educate people both on the program and on solar in general, so that people have kind of that foundational understanding needed when speaking to an installer. And then back in April, the MREA put together an advisory board with representatives from the sponsoring counties and representatives from CUB. And we put out a request for proposals for a solar installer for this year's program. And we competitively selected Windfree Solar. So we're working with them this year. And when looking for an installer, we're looking for companies that have high quality workmanship, who can offer more affordable pricing, and who have very good customer service. So we found that in Windfree, which is why we're working with them this year. And then, yeah, we host these solar power hours. And after you attend one, you are able to sign up for a free site assessment with Windfree to get a custom proposal and see how much solar will cost you. We will be sending a follow-up email with the sign-in, and there should also, I'm sure, be a link in the chat for that sign-up form. And then finally, it is a group buy. So the more participants who join, the greater the savings become for everyone. And I will get to that pricing structure in a couple of slides. And now we can get some more information on Windfree Solar from Adam.
Thank you, Marina. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam, Windfree Solar, Head of Project Development, and talk a little bit about how Windfree does business. We have been around since 2009. We're a Chicago-based company operating almost entirely in the Chicagoland area. We do work throughout Illinois, but the vast majority of our operating area is right here in these 4 counties. During our time in business, we've completed over 900 residential installations with a total capacity of right around 19 megawatts of solar. Besides just residential, we also do commercial solar, electric vehicle charging stations, which is a very hot topic now with all the new incentives that are available. Also sustainability consultation and energy audits and LED retrofits. Some of our most notable projects include the DePaul University, Habitat for Humanity, where we did the very first solar installation in Illinois, and also the Oak Park Conservatory. And then what we provide for the Group 5 program, we do provide a fully turnkey system, right? So that includes material, labor, design and engineering, materials and procurement, all the incentive applications and processing, which is important because the state incentive specifically is a rather complex piece of paperwork that is required. Also, we do provide all of the warranty, right? So 25-year power warranty on the panels, 12 years on the inverter, 25 years if you go with power optimizers or microinverters, and then finally a 15-year workmanship warranty. And then the last thing that I wanted to note is that if you are interested in going solar for your home, the very first thing that we are going to be asking for would be a recent copy of a ComEd bill. And we ask for this specifically so that we can figure out A, how much energy you use in a year, and B, what size system would be best, suited to those needs. So yeah, thank you.
Just a few more slides. So now we can get into that pricing structure. So with the Group 5, we have a base price of $3.20 per watt, and that base price is lower than what Windfree would typically offer outside of this program. And then we also have participation benchmarks or goals. So as we hit each goal, there will be a rebate per watt. So we have been doing these presentations all summer, so we actually have hit our first goal. We have around 130 kilowatts worth of signups right now. So our base price is now at $3.15. And as we hit goal 2 and goal 3, those prices will continue to go down with a final price of $3.05 per watt. And just to note, we have reached the 750 kilowatt goal the past 2 times we ran this program in Chicagoland. So it's not an overly ambitious goal, but of course, spreading the word about this program to family and neighbors who may be interested is still always helpful. And this is kind of a fun slide just to put together everything we've talked about with the incentives. I wanted to show what the price may look like before and after those incentives are applied. So I took a 6.5 kilowatt size system and found the price for it at that base price of $3.20 per watt, which once again is still lower than what Windfree would typically offer outside of the program. So that gets us to around 20 grand, right? Next, we can use our Illinois SREC to take off almost $9,000. I believe that specific number equals 42% of the total project cost. After that, we have our tax credit, which takes off another $6,000. And finally, that additional Group 5 discount is around $1,000. So that's what the discount would look like if we do reach that final goal. So now we see a price that is just under $5,000 instead of $20,000. So you can see that Illinois is just, we have like a wonderful incentive with that SREC, and then the tax credit is helpful too. So there really is quite a big difference between the before and the after. One thing I would like to note though is, you're not getting that Illinois SREC or the tax credit until months after your installation is complete. So as much as I wish you could just write a check for $5,000 in the beginning, that's not quite how it works. You do need to get some type of bridge loan to cover those upfront costs before you get those incentives back. And then after that, you can finance the rest of it, whichever way you see best for yourself. But yeah,
Let me interrupt you just for a moment. Apologies. I think your connection is getting a little weak from the rain outside. Just wanted to flag in case there's anything we can do. Okay.
I would say I'm basically done. And so for any questions, Adam can take care of that. Can you hear me okay right now?
You sound a little underwater. It's not the worst. So if you have another slide or two, I think we can wrap up, and then yeah, it would be great if Adam can cover for Q&A just so folks can hear a little better.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, Okay, cool. All that's really left is that if you are interested, just make sure to sign that follow-up form that we'll send both in the chat and through email, and have a ComEd bill ready. And yeah, I'll just get through. Thank you from Cub. If you ever have any questions about your bills or solar, or really anything you can think of, you can call our hotline. Thank you from the MREA. And here is the program website and my contact info. So that's really all I have, and we can open it up for Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Marina, and appreciate you, Adam, for jumping in as well. Just want to say thank you to everybody, and we will now open the line for Q&A. As a quick reminder, for those using Zoom, please either add your questions to the chat and or use the raise hand function. And for those joining by phone, please use *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute and ask a question. Believe in the very beginning, we had a question from Michael. This was during Marina when you were introducing what Cub does and MREA. So I think either of you can cover this. But I believe Michael was asking for clarification if cable is included in the utility oversight.
Yeah, Cub can help you out with your cable bills, Wi-Fi, phone as well.
Perfect. And it was easier to hear you that time, Marina. So things are looking up. I don't see any hands raised just yet or any questions in the chat. Just double checking. Okay. Aaron is asking, can we indicate on the Windfree solar estimate survey that we are interested in the Cub group by?
It's actually assumed that if anybody that's on the webinars, it'll be indicated through a list of email addresses that we have, that you'll be automatically enrolled in the program.
And Ari is asking, oh, how do you raise your hand? Ari, go ahead and unmute yourself. If you have a question. Okay, I asked to unmute. Oh, I saw you go on mute for a second. There you go.
Hello?
Hi, Ari. Did you have a question?
Yes. Does trying to add solar panels to a garage delay that? Does that disqualify me if I wanted to go with that?
No, it does not disqualify. The only issue would be that you would need to transfer power back from the garage to the main house so that we can connect to the ComEd meter. But there's no disqualifications or really any issues at all besides the trenching.
Okay. Thank you for that. I have a couple more questions, but I'll give everyone else a turn.
Sure.
Okay. Paul is asking, can you explain more about how a system is sized? They understand that ComEd limits sizes.
So a few things. ComEd does not limit anymore. They used to, but that rule is gone with CEJA. So there used to be a 110% max oversizing limit. That rule is gone. Now we still recommend, kind of adhering to that. So we would look at your past 12 months of data from ComEd, see how much energy you use over the past year. And then we review how much energy we expect a given system size to produce. And then we would try and match the two together. So that's how we would typically size. If there's, hey, I'm going to be getting an EV or I'm putting in a new charger or new appliances, we can review that. But our baseline is going to be to go off of what ComEd's usage is.
Thank you. And then Zamraya is asking if, Adam, you could include your contact information. So it's something
I'll be reaching out to everybody that's on this email list. So you'll have my contact information once I reach out to you. Give me like 2 or 3 days probably.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
And then Michael is asking, can you install solar panels above a flat roof? Still able to use a deck under the panels, like a minimum of 8 to 9 feet, clear space between the panels and the actual deck on the roof.
So this is something that is not necessarily possible, and it's more of a custom. It's possible, anything's possible, right? But you know, this is definitely not part of the group buy program unless the structure is built for us, right? So a lot of people will put a pergola type structure up on top of the deck, and then we build on top of the pergola. So if that's something that they're willing to do, then definitely something is possible. But us building that structure, that's not really something that we do. So yes. Yes and no.
Thank you. And then Ari said, you just purchased his own home 9 months ago. Does the assessment include a roof check? Also, he doesn't have 12 months worth of electric bills just yet because he just
Sure.
moved.
So we're not roofers, so we can recommend roofers. And if you're curious about the condition or the longevity of your roof, we always recommend hiring a roofer, come out there, letting them know what your plan is to do, right? You're putting, or maybe putting solar on your roof, wanting to know if you're in good condition to do so. Always recommend that because we're not roofers, we're installers. We're on roofs a lot, so we know. Sorry, I lost a little light there, but yes, I can provide recommendations as far as people to reach out to. They do typically charge. Be aware of that. This is not just a like quote type thing. This is a service that they provide. Of course, it's a service that would be federally eligible for that incentive as well because it is a prep for solar. Oh, and then sorry, he also mentioned that you had 9 months out of 12. We can extrapolate data based on previous 9 months, and the program that we use will automatically assume what the other 3 months would look like. Or you can provide any of your own insight into what your plans are for the future.
Right. And he followed up saying he would love recommendations.
In my email, I'll be reaching out and then we can talk about that for sure.
Perfect. Okay, I don't see hands raised. Any more questions? Okay, Ari is also asking if it's okay to max out panels.
Yeah, so what we do is we would maximize the available roof space. We don't use typically the main service panel itself. We're going back to the meter. So we're bypassing service panels to eliminate any issues with not having any spares or not having enough capacity specifically to house the breakers. Asking about whether or not it is a problem to have multiple meters. We do typically recommend that we connect only to one meter. A lot of people will go and they'll call ComEd and they'll have ComEd either virtually combine those meters together and deactivate one of them, or even physically removing it and having the circuits reworked into one. It's always beneficial, even if you don't get solar, to have this done. But solar is more of a reason to get it done earlier than later. But we always recommend having it done either way. ComEd can help it. Like I said, virtually or physically is probably going to be the way to go.
Okay, wonderful. Just being mindful of time here. So on that note, thank you all for joining IUC for our Lunch and Learn Solar Power Hour, Grow Solar Chicagoland. Recordings of each session in the Lunch and Learn series can be found on IUC's YouTube channel and our website. Again, if you are not already a member of IUC and are able to give, please consider joining today by using the link in the chat box. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our next Lunch and Learn, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, August 30th, on the Inflation Reduction Act, also known as IRA. So thank you again to our speakers and Paloma for moderating our chat here, and have a great one, everyone.